Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Crowley and this is my high leverage practices presentation. Um, so basically what I did was I did not put the practices that I chose in order based on numerical value. So for instance, I didn't do practice 7, 8, 9, 10. I basically read through each one and I realized that they kind of build off of each other. So what I did was I put mine in order, kind of chronologically on how they build off of each other. So the first practice that I chose was practice number 7, establish a consistent, organized, and respectful learning environment. This one is very important because this one is basically talking about building relationships with your students and doing that first instead of focusing mainly on the schoolwork and the content level right away. So basically when you get your students in your classroom, you want to create kind of a bond with them and establish your rules and your routines and procedures that are going to be practiced throughout the school year. You want to give the age-appropriate feedback. You want to show your students that you really care about each other, and in turn this will reduce your challenging behavior and increase your student engagement. So a way that I would implement these, there's a whole long list of how you could implement them, but I like to use this point right here, getting to know each student by sending home a survey, or we like to use me bags in my classroom. This is basically where I give each student a brown paper bag and they can decorate it any way they want, and they can take it home and put some just a couple things that explain themselves and bring it back to school, and they can kind of take the items out of the bag and present them to their class. Another way to implement this is also, building your relationship first, school second, establishing your routines. We like to use picture schedules for this in my classroom. It kind of, gives a clear, easy to follow way for students to know what's going to happen throughout the day. Using a lot of reinforcing positive praise, such as verbal praise or small treats as rewards, and having everything clearly labeled and organized kind of helps keep the room not as overwhelming and overstimulating for students, and it helps keep everything kind of organized. And as you can see, there are many others, but these are just a few that I like to use in my classroom. The next practice that I chose to talk about is using strategies to promote active student engagement. Student engagement is very important when it comes to learning new information and just overall your teaching strategies. Using these strategies to promote the student engagement, you can use teacher-led, peer-assisted, student-regulated, and also technology. Technology is a huge part of this, where you want to use videos, songs, things that really relate what you are trying to teach them to the student and have them engaged and provide a lot of positive feedback to keep this momentum going throughout your lessons. Ways that I would implement student engagement is by having students participate in discussions, whether that be in whole group or small group, using a lot of brainstorming activities or graphic organizers. And what I personally like to do is create kind of a lesson hook or an engagement piece. Usually for this I use a video or a song that is relevant to the lesson that I'm teaching. It kind of gets the kids excited and ready to learn what you're doing. I also like to use a lot of hands-on activities, a lot of movement You could also use the movement strategies with your songs and videos. They have a lot of videos that incorporate both of these together. I use a lot of random name and number selections so that it kind of keeps the students on their toes to where they don't know who I might call on or when they might be selected. And also, field trips are a big one in my class. We go on a lot of trips because, again, the hands-on experience really keeps them engaged and excited and ready to learn. The next practice that I chose is explicit instruction. As we all know, explicit instruction is where we take the skill or the concept that we're trying to teach and kind of breaking it down into smaller steps using scaffolding and really allowing our students to kind of grasp one concept before moving on to another. This is where teachers can strategically choose their examples and non-examples and really make sure that their students understand the essential content and remove a lot of distractions in order to help our students become successful. Ways that I would implement explicit teaching is using the I do, we do, you do method, where the I do is a lot of modeling. The we do is the group work where you walk around and check for understanding and do another example together as a group, and then allow your students to do the you do, which is the independent practice, and allow them to apply what they've learned. This is very easy to follow and easy to guide your lesson plans to where you make sure each student is understanding what you are trying to teach them. It also talks about using a brisk pace for the lesson, having all of your materials ready, avoid digression within the conversations, and really, leaning back on your instructional routines to keep everything moving fluidly and allowing your students to respond to what you are teaching, but leaving out all the extra details so that you can focus on your main points in your content. The next practice that I chose was using assistive and instructional technology. Assistive instructional technology really helps your students to meet them where they're at, to where they can grasp the concepts that you are teaching. You basically want to keep your students' IEP goals in mind, and you want to really research and evaluate the new technology out there that can help your students become successful. Ways to implement the technology are pencil grips, whether they're weighted or sensory. In my classroom, we use a lot of slant boards because a lot of students with vision problems, they can't see their paper flat on the desk, so we raise it up on a slanted board, and it really helps with their handwriting and also with reading as well. Using speech-to-text devices to help those who have trouble with spelling or have trouble with the writing, who can't grasp the writing. We use this a lot. Using tablets and iPads and Chromebooks. This is used a lot in our classroom as well with lessons where it's very easy to get your children to open up their Chromebooks. You can use technology websites such as the Google Classroom and push articles or assign easy to follow videos and things like that to really get them engaged and listening and ready to learn. The next one that I chose was providing positive and constructive feedback to guide students' learning behavior. This practice is improving learning and behavior by increasing the motivation and engagement as well as independence through feedback. The feedback must be goal-directed and given quickly and contingent upon what you are teaching the children. Implementing this is, I like to use the if-then statements, like to make sure that my feedback is contingent, using a lot of guided practice, which is that, here again, is that we do concept through explicit teaching. Another one is critiquing one skill at a time. This helps the students to really focus on one skill and really mastering that one skill before moving on to the next, so that they can focus on what you're telling them and focus on the concepts and skills that they're trying to learn. Also, another one that's very important that a lot of people often forget about is your facial expressions, using verbal and nonverbal and written. If a student doesn't perform very well, you really want to watch your facial expressions and make sure that you are still maintaining that positive relationship with your students. And those were my high leverage practices that I chose to present. Thank you.